So the H-1B visa is one of the most popular common visas here in America. But do you know all the ways it works? Our immigration system in the States is very complicated, very strict, so you don't want to break any rules. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the things you can and cannot do on your H-1B visa. Check it out. Hey friends, welcome to Chine Coaching. I'm Rob, and at Chine Coaching, we love helping guide people to success in their cross-cultural journeys, especially when it comes to things with immigration, visas, and getting jobs here in America. We've helped guide lots of people. We've got a really fun conversation today to help you understand the H-1B visa. We've got our friend and guest, Soundarya. So Soundarya, please introduce yourself.
I love the way you said my name right now, but it was so sweet.
You're welcome. Go for it.
My name is, well, in India they say Soundarya. In America, people say Soundarya, so either work. My nickname is Pooja. A lot of people call me that. And I moved to this country about 5 years ago for my master's at Columbia University. It was a master's in management science and engineering. And post-graduation, I worked as a product manager at Salesforce for 2.5 years. And during this time, I published my first book, Admitted, which was aimed at helping anyone who wanted to study abroad, like I did. And currently, I'm working on my second book called Unshackled. Oh, there it is.
There's Admitted. Highly recommend it.
You know, I don't have a copy myself, oddly enough, but anyways, so currently I'm working on this other book called Unshackled, which, as the title says, is about helping immigrants feel slightly more unshackled than they currently are within the immigration system. So I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, so great to be hanging out. We've done some other fun collaborations before. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of this video because we're going to talk more about this new special project that Pooja is working on. So we're going to talk more about that at the end of the video. But Soundarya, also, we have a disclaimer we need to give about the type of advice in this video. So please give a disclaimer.
Just so people don't think that I am a lawyer or have a law degree, I do not. And I've just been doing a ton of research on this topic that I think would be helpful for you all, especially if you're moving to this country for the very first time, or even if you're still on an F1 visa, planning to get to an H-1B soon and want to start a company in the future. For all of you, I wanted to share some useful insights, but please know that I am not a lawyer and this is not professional legal advice.
Yes, we are not immigration lawyers or attorneys, just sharing from personal experience. So please consult with professionals to go to more details. Well, let's jump right in. What is an H-1B? Like, what do people need to know? Like, what does it mean? How does it work? What are the basics?
Yeah, I think everyone listening to this have already heard of the H-1B visa, but the legal speak is the H-1B is a temporary non-immigrant visa that is meant to be used for people who are in specialty occupations, and it can be extended for up to 6 years in total. So it's initially for 3 years, and then you can extend for another 3 years. But after 6 years, you have to figure out some other means through which you can still stay and work in this country. And the H-1B actually has an interesting history where I've been reading a lot about the history of immigration lately. And it seems like there were some pivotal changes that were made to the immigration system in the 20th century. So first, there was a law enacted in 1952, which is when, for the very first time, the US removed something called the country quota limits, which was really just discriminating people based on their country. So that was abolished. And more focus was enacted on this idea of employment-based immigration. So until then, the US had given a lot of preference for family-based immigration, which just means that if you're here, you can bring as many of your family members as possible. But they wanted to shift that lens a little bit and start focusing more on people who are highly skilled, who they wanted to bring into this country. So I believe the H-1 was introduced in that 1952 law, but it wasn't until the 1990 when the Bush administration enacted another immigration reform law when they created the H-1B category visa and also put a limit on how many people can enter through that. I don't really know why they put that limit right now, but they decided that we'll only give 65,000 visas every year through this H-1B category. And honestly, it makes sense because it was always supposed to be a temporary work visa for people with special skills. So they also wanted to prioritize Americans to get jobs first. So they don't want infinite number of people to keep coming in through this H-1B visa.
And because of the limits, it also means there's a lottery, right? You want to mention how the lottery works?
Yeah. So for the first 7 years after the 1990 law was enacted, H-1B came up, the lottery was not even reached, that limit, because it was 65,000. And I think the first year it was something like 3,000 people came through the H-1B visa. But pretty quickly, people across the world realized that, oh, now I can actually move to this country through this visa. And the nice thing about the H-1B is there's not a lot of high bar that you have to meet. You need to have a bachelor's degree. You need to be working at a job that requires a bachelor's degree and it's related to your degree. But that's pretty much it. So after the 7th year, though, I think the lottery was first reached in 1997. And that's when the whole debate began as to should we increase the lottery cap of H-1B. And there is a lot that happened there in those few years of 1997 to 2000. And in fact, the H-1B limit was increased for a few years up to 115,000 visas allotted every year. But then they reduced it back to 65,000. And then they added one slight modification to this whole cap that if you have a master's or doctorate degree, then you get 20,000 more slots than those with just a bachelor's degree. So essentially, it's 85,000 visas if you have a master's or doctorate degree. If you don't, it's still 65,000, the same as it was 33 years ago.
Now, a common question that I get a lot about visas and H-1B is, can we start our own companies? So how does H-1B relate to entrepreneurship and starting a business?
The bad news is that there is no startup visa in the US right now. People have tried really hard to bring that up as a law, but it never happened. So that's the bad news. The good news is you can start a business on an H-1B. Until 2010, there was no clear guidance on what you can and can't do. You were just in a limbo state as to wondering if you can or cannot start a business. But in 2010, a memo was released which essentially said that, hey, you can start a business if you are an H-1B visa holder. But it comes with a lot of caveats that you have to satisfy as well. First is, you cannot be the sole proprietor of the company. Because if you are the sole proprietor, then it means you are the one doing all the work for the company. That you're doing managerial and operational work that you cannot be doing because you have an H-1B through a different employer. For example, somebody working at Google, their work in the US must be under the umbrella of Google because that's where they have a work authorization. So if they wanted to start a company, then they cannot be the sole proprietor of that company. Secondly, they need to be in a position where they can be hired and fired and essentially be treated like an employee, which kind of sucks because if it's your idea, you want to build a company, but because of immigration restrictions, you cannot be, for example, the CEO of the company. I mean, you can, I guess, still be a CEO, but you have to be in a position where you can be fired and hired by a board of directors that you have, or by the CEO if you're not the CEO. The third, I guess, criteria, I don't know how you would satisfy this, but the company should not have been created just to get you the H-1B visa eventually. That just means that you need to have a proper business plan. You need to have, for example, funding. You need to have a website, a slide deck, all these assets and materials that show that you are actually a legitimate entity that's doing work here. The final point would just be that your business plan should include eventually hiring some American employees as well, because once again, this is kind of a constant point if you keep looking at the immigration system, is the US wants more Americans to be hired. They want to reduce the unemployment rate in this country first. That's why they're always very careful, and they'll give you freedom to do what you want, but within these constraints, and you need to benefit the economy in return. But hope that gives some clarity.
Yeah, so it sounds like if there's a lot of special conditions met, there is the chance you could start a business on an H-1B. But what are some other things that are allowed? What are things people can do that are opportunities and legally okay on an H-1B?
First is you can incorporate and register a company. as we just talked about. You can develop a business model for your company. You can create a board of directors, and you can be on the board yourself. You can have equity in the company and be a shareholder. You can vote, and you can also do some market research for the product that you guys are creating or a service that you're creating. So these are all the things that, as far as I know, you can do when you start a business on an H-1B that is through a different employer, not the company that you just set up. But as you probably guessed by seeing what you can do, the things you cannot do are any sort of managerial or executive functions, meaning you can't be the one delegating tasks to people. You cannot be the one hiring people or firing people. Any sort of day-to-day operational tasks that involve in running a company, you can't be the one doing that. So this can manifest itself in many scenarios. One scenario is you have a co-founder who is maybe a citizen or has a green card and has the ability to do whatever they want. And so you share the responsibility such that you only do the things that, as we just saw, you can do, and give them all the other responsibilities. But the eventual goal, I feel like, should be for you to get an H-1B through your own company. Because otherwise, you're going to keep playing this double agent role of working on an H-1B for your employer and then only doing certain things that you can't do for this company that you set up. And I think there's only so many years that you can do that. Eventually, you would want to play a more involved role. So I would say focus on getting your company to that stage so you can hire yourself through this entity that you set up.
I love it. This has been great. I've learned so much. My friends, if you are learning a lot like me, give a big like and thumbs up to say thanks to Soundarya for talking about these aspects of H-1B. And our chai question for you guys is, what other H-1B questions do you have? Maybe there's something we haven't covered yet in this video that you want to learn more about. So tell us in the comments, what are some other H-1B questions that you have about this type of work visa? Now, Soundarya, what do you think about the long-term value of being able to be in America for people on an H-1B visa?
Interestingly, the H-1B is still the easiest visa in a way through which you can enter the US. Yes, there's the F1 visa, but most of F1 students do end up going to the H-1B visa route because of how easy it is. As I said, the bar that you have to meet to get the visa is not very high. So I feel like in that sense, I don't think the H-1B is going away anytime soon. In fact, there's been a lot of lobbying by Congress to increase the H-1B cap, to let more people in. But I don't know when that'll happen, because one side of the government wants to increase the cap. And this is the side that believes that getting more foreign talent would actually benefit the American economy. And the other side feels that getting more foreign talent is really just taking jobs away from people here. And also, a lot of people abuse the H-1B. We've heard of these consulting firms from India that kind of clog up the H-1B lottery by putting in all of their applications, which comes at the cost of actual small startups that have that have been working so hard to get an H-1B for their employee. So I hope they make changes to at least make it more fair. But I also think you can't be on an H-1B beyond 6 years anyway. After the 6 years, you have to move to something else. So you need to apply for, I would think, a more permanent visa. And that's where you have the EB3, EB2, which most people go that route. But sadly for people from India and China, that really it's a waiting game for the next many decades. I've read articles where it said you have to wait for 100 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's absurd to even think about. So I'm seeing a lot of interest for people to move to visas like the EB1 and O1, which have a very high bar that you have to meet. But if you meet that, you can get it faster. And you also have this tag that, hey, you got the O1 or EB1, which helps you. So.
Yeah, and we've got some videos on our channel too that talk about EB1 and O1. So if you're more interested in learning about those, feel free to check those out. A special question then that I think is good for people to think about is, can you apply for an H-1B from your own company?
Yeah, it's a very relevant question because once again, with most responses when it comes to immigration, the answer is yes, but blank. So always be sure of what that blank is. So yes, you can apply for an H1 through an entity that you've set up, where you've played a part in setting it up, but it has to satisfy something called the employer-employee relationship, which makes sense, right? Once again, the country wants to make sure that you're not abusing the H-1B, that you're actually here, that you're trying to create value for this country. So to satisfy that employer-employee relationship, you can either have a board of directors who can hire and fire you, essentially saying that you are fireable and hireable in the company. And secondly, I've also seen people do it by showing less ownership. So if you have less than 50% ownership and somebody else has more than 50%, then by law, I would think that they can hire and fire you. So that's another way you can show it if you don't want to hire a board of directors for this. So these are two ways that I know of through which you can establish that relationship. And with everything in immigration, the fine print really does matter here. So I would highly recommend anyone watching this video who is thinking of starting a company on an H-1B or already has a company and wants to apply for an H-1 through their own company to talk to a good lawyer. And for anyone watching this, if you're looking to get in touch with a really good attorney, feel free to reach out to me and I can certainly put you in touch with people that I know, because as part of Unshackled, I've been doing a lot of research and talking to immigration lawyers.
Fantastic. So now tell us about this new project, Unshackled, and how people can be involved in your new Kickstarter campaign for that.
Yeah. So this, like admitted, was not supposed to be such a big book. If you remember, Rob, I was on your channel 2 years ago talking about my first book. And I told you that I began that as a 1-week project, but it kept becoming bigger and bigger. With Unshackled, my initial goal was to write a short guide on the O1 process, but I realized soon while talking to people that actually there's a big knowledge gap when it comes to immigration, that most people don't know of many pathways out there that they could be taking to start a business, to become a solopreneur, to fast track their way to getting a green card. So I thought, I think this topic deserves more time than I was initially thinking of giving it. That's when I decided to co-author with my immigration lawyer, Samir. Samir is honestly one of the best, not just lawyers, but one of the best people out there in terms of being very understanding and compassionate when you work with him. I loved working with him, so I thought, let's actually write something together. Also because I'm not a lawyer, so no one's going to trust me if I go and tell them you should do this. But I realized that with Samir by my side and both of us working together, we can actually write a very useful, actionable book for people. And the goal with Unshackled is, number one, is to just educate people on what the hell is going on with immigration in this country. Why does it seem so slow or dysfunctional sometimes? And also educate people on all the pathways they can take when they move here for studying or working. Second is, I hope the book actually creates more immigrant entrepreneurs, people who realize, I can actually take all these routes to build a company. And third is to help people understand options for permanent residency, how to get there. Yeah, we just launched a Kickstarter campaign for pre-orders for the book. And the book also comes with an online community where we'll have a ton of events, webinars, weekly office hours and such. So if you're interested to read this book when it launches in a few months, then just go to readunshackled.com/Rob. And if you visit that, you'll be able to be an early supporter of this project.
I love it. Yeah, we'll have all the links so you can learn more, get involved, and educate yourself on immigration, starting companies, all this exciting stuff. And we're also making another video with Soundarya about how to start your own company here in America, but on a work visa. If you want to learn more about those aspects, kind of what we kind of hinted at in this video, keep an eye out for that other video we're going to record as well. Soundarya, thanks so much for hanging out and talking about H-1B visas and bringing some clarity today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Definitely. I'm super excited to get my hands on your book whenever it comes out. So yeah, I'm going to go check out that Kickstarter page as well. My friends, be sure to connect with us online on social media like LinkedIn, Instagram. You'll see Pooja active there as well. Be sure you're subscribed to our newsletters. Chine Coaching has one. Soundarya has a great blog newsletter as well. You don't want to miss. Thanks for being a part of our amazing Chine Coaching community. We love having you tune in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.